Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. On Wednesdays, speak to guests who are warriors themselves and really looking to share their warrior story. If this happens to be the first time watching, please make sure if you're watching it on YouTube, you mash down the subscribe button. If you're on any of the streaming platforms, put us into your want to watch list, your wish list. I don't know what it's called, but the list so that you don't miss another episode. And I go live on Mondays at 11 a.m. Mountain Time and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. So, again, on Wednesdays, I have guests that really share their story, whatever they've been through in their life, but they're sharing their experience. My brain is not going as fast as my mouth is today. They're sharing their experience and really into that place of hope. And I am super excited for my guest this evening. So, without further ado, I am going to bring up Chad. Thank you so much for joining me.
I am excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yay. Yes, absolutely. So, tell the audience a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so like I was telling you before, my story is it's long. I was born with special needs. I had a learning disability, and my mother was a drug addict. I never knew my mom or my father, and my mom was really heavily addicted to crack, and so that put us in a world full of poverty, drugs, abuse, fights, a lot of violence. My home was raided when I was 14 years old, and my mom was sent to federal prison, and I was sent to live in Oklahoma with my aunt and uncle. And for 14 months, I was abused both physically and mentally there. And I got to a point. This is back in the day. I'm in my 40s, and there's still payphones when this happened. But I remember just getting fed up, and I ran away. I didn't know how I was. I'm from Virginia, and I'm in Oklahoma. I didn't know how I was going to get back, but I ran away with no money and got all the way back to Virginia. So I was able to kind of escape that situation. And then, like, things continue. I was very lost growing up, especially as I was angry. Uh, so even after that, the damage was kind of already done. I didn't understand why my life was the way it was. And I felt like the world had to pay for it, right? So I would get in a lot of fights. I would, very challenge authority. And I finally met a young lady when I was in high school that kind of challenged the way I was thinking, and we ended up getting married, and we've been together ever since. 27. It's about to be 27 years, and she made me believe and want more because the rate I was going was, I was gonna go. I was gonna end up dead or in prison, and so I ended up joining the military because I had dropped out of high school. I was that kind of a knucklehead. I just didn't want to do anything that anyone told me I had to do. So of course I would join the army, right? The one place that tells you exactly what you have to do. And at first it was a rough experience because I didn't have structure, and the military is that's what they do. And after a few years though, I started kind of feeling like I knew who I was. I was starting to unfold a person that I didn't know existed within me. I ended up becoming a sniper in the U.S. Army. And then I was honored to teach combat applications, and not just to the Army, but all four branches of the military, special operations, even some civilian contractors. So I got to work with people like John Jones. I know that some people don't like him, but I got to, work with him and a few other UFC guys. And everything was going well, but I ended up getting injured in Iraq, and they medically discharged me or medically retired me. And well, let me back up. While all this is happening, my daughter ends up having a stroke. She was 5 years old, and I was stationed in Germany at the time. And we were about to redeploy to Afghanistan, and she has this stroke, and she's misdiagnosed for 24 hours. My wife was 38 weeks pregnant at the time. And so while my daughter is fighting for her life in ICU, my wife ends up giving birth. So I'm just lost in this situation. And I had my oldest son with us because we have four altogether. At this time, it was, two plus her being about to give birth. So I had my oldest son, and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? And they sent my daughter, my oldest son, and myself to Walter Reed when it was still in Washington, D.C. But they made my wife and our newborn stay in Germany because, you have to have passport and paperwork. And so now we're separated. We have nothing. I'm living out of a bag in a hospital, and she's in a foreign country all by herself with a newborn. So it was a really tough situation for us. They told us that our daughter would never walk, talk, or eat ever again, that the stroke and the time period that they misdiagnosed her had done so much damage that they just didn't see a future for her. And we ended up getting her to do all of those things. She still struggles. She only works with half a brain, and she's 18 now, about to turn 19. But she's a inspiration to all of us. And we ended up, of course, having another child after that, about a year after um, we all got to DC, and both of them were diagnosed with autism. And so now we have three kids in therapy with disabilities we didn't even know existed, right? It was challenging to say the least. I ended up getting injured in Iraq, and that's when things really, it was like it's what broke the camel's back for me. When they retired me, I was lost. My Coming from being a kid that had no identity, that hated life, to turn into something that I was really good at. I was good at being a soldier. I felt like I had purpose and direction, and I finally knew who Chad was, right? And once that was gone, it felt like my identity was stripped as well. And I just didn't know what to do. I started drinking. I tried to find my solutions at the bottom of a bottle, which is what they do in the military. It's a big, especially in combat arms. It's the way to get around things, and it was ruining my marriage. It was ruining my relationship with my kids. And so, I go through this process, and I knew I needed to change. I knew I needed to do something to get out of this funk because I was losing everything that really meant something to me. And so I started riding motorcycles as a release. And in 2018, I get hit making in a four-way intersection. I'm making a left turn. This 18-year-old kid blew through his red light and blew through me at the same time at 45 miles an hour. And you know, I don't know how. Some people don't believe in God. I have to, with everything that I face, because I almost died in Iraq too, and now this is happening. And I could have died as a kid in that environment. Like, it was just a lot of violence and a lot of crazy all around me. And then this happens, and I have a really severe concussion, and my body's a little banged up, but I'm good. I don't know how. I really don't. I've seen people get hit by cars at a lesser speed and way less of an impact, and they are, either dead or not walking for the rest of their life. And so, but I still was lost. I was still drinking afterwards, and almost like confirmed that I was too strong to die or something. I don't know. It messed with my head in the wrong way. And I think the universe sent it my way so I would change, but I didn't change. And I get back on a motorcycle about a year later, and I'm riding this time with a group of friends, and we're on I-95 going south in Virginia, and a minivan going 65 miles an hour swerves into my lane because they didn't see me and puts me into a Jersey barrier. I flew into a construction zone. I flatlined twice. I've had over 6 surgeries. Still need more. I had to learn. I was in ICU for 7 days and in the hospital altogether for 14. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Like, I know that people look at struggle and challenges like this as a negative, but I think that that's a concept that if we can get away from, we can see the truth behind life. And that's what kind of happened to me. And I had a out of body experience, actually, which is what changed me, I believe. Like, I could see everything. I could see the doctors working on me. I could see them sticking IVs in me, but I wasn't in my body. And for 2 years, I thought I was. For 2 years, I thought this person in this body had my head up, looking at everything, right? Talking to the doctor, just doing, and it wasn't. I actually was on a podcast with a young lady who that's what she does. She deals with like, you know, out of body experiences. And when I told her the story, she was like, "You had an out of body experience, Chad." And I was like, and then it was like a light went off just right then, and everything replayed. Because for 2 years I tried to figure out what was going on, and I wouldn't really tell people because I knew I was already a little crazy, and then that would just, everybody would think I was crazy after that, right? Like there would be no one left to think that I was a sane man, right? And so I just kept it under wraps because I didn't understand it. And then the light bulb went off and life made sense. And it has been a phenomenal ride since then. Despite all the injuries, it's been an eye opener for me. And now I see kind of the bigger purpose of life and me and just everything. And but it took me almost dying for me to get out of my way. I don't drink anymore. I'm a vegetarian. Like everything is changing. Not I didn't have to force any of these changes, which is the way that I knew all of this was real. Is it was and for 2 years I was already making those changes. I just didn't know why. I didn't know why I didn't want to drink anymore. I didn't want to even listen to the same stuff. I stopped watching TV. I just didn't want any of it anymore, and I didn't understand but the why behind it, but I do now. And like I said, that's what really changed me as an individual and brought some real clarity to my life. So in a nutshell, that's kind of my life. So
Wow. I remember reading your, well, you, because so every single guest for the audience, I asked them to tell me a little bit about their story just so that I can understand and somewhat guide the conversation. But I was reading and I'm like, oh my God, like this is like real life. Like, wow. And then hearing it from you, I just think it's incredible. And your email is Mr. Tenacity.
yeah,
And I was like, I wonder why. And now I know, like,
yeah,
that's just, I mean, not that I would ever want anybody to go through all of those things, right? To get to this point that you're like, all right, something's got to change. I mean, we often, many people, right? We go through thing after thing after thing, and it's maybe not as bad as we thought it would be, or we start making excuses, or we have those out of body experiences that we can't really understand why it's not affecting us the same way as it affects maybe other people. And knowing that you, like in both of these motorcycle accidents, that one, like you said, I mean, that would, I've had many of friends that have gotten killed
yeah,
riding their motorcycles, getting hit, going that fast. And so, I mean, just being able to live through that, and then all the things that you went through with your family and your kids. And it's just, thank you, first and foremost, for sharing your story, because I think it is important that people hear your message, the message of resiliency, the message of tenacity, the message of, yeah, I went through all of these things. And it's not that I'm like trying to compare myself by any means. It's just that's my story and that's how I went through life. And now it took me a little bit to get to that point to say, hey, I need a change. Something's got to change. And it completely changed your whole entire life. So that's just incredible.
yeah. I think that there's we all have a different path, and we all will have different things move us in different ways. One of the biggest mistakes we can ever make is comparing our life, our path to someone else's. That's probably 90% of everyone's issues is they're on someone else's path and wondering why they're lost. Just because you're on a path doesn't mean that you're found. Doesn't mean that you're going in the direction that you're supposed to. And I found myself doing that, especially early on. But the whole reason I even started telling my stories because, man, you're here for a reason. And I told you a story earlier about a good friend of mine who committed suicide in the parking lot of the military hospital. And I had just talked to him. A matter of fact, a whole bunch of us had just talked to him. We knew nothing was wrong. We didn't even ask. We didn't even care to find out what was going on with him. And one conversation, one word could have changed everything, and it didn't. And so I carry that with me because I've had a lot of friends that ended up committing suicide. And my main message is this: is that everything that you face, it pulls out of you things and qualities that you didn't even know existed. If we can take the right or wrong, the good or bad away from life, it just is. Right. We give it meaning in all honesty, because like I said, this accident, this last one, everyone who I tell it to, they're like, oh my God, that's horrible, right? But it was the best thing in my life. Yeah, like hands down, it changed me and made me see life from a completely different perspective in life. So what was perceived as bad was actually very beautiful and very good in my life. And we look at the storms of life and we're like, why is this happening to me? Da, 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 da. But it's all to raise your consciousness, all to help you advance into who you're supposed to be and really uncover what's already within you. You're already special. You're already awesome. But good times don't pull it out of you. Good times just keep you stagnant, right? But that adversity, it really shows you who you are. It shows you how resilient you are and how prepared you were for that situation. Even in the times that we feel we're not unprepared or we are unprepared, look how you handled it. You got through it, right? So there's a lot to say about the human spirit when it's faced with the storm. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
it is interesting. I mean, um, the interesting part that's popping into my head is I've had people in the past say, wow, you've been through a lot of things, and I'm not sure how you've gotten through them. And then for me, when I look in retrospect, I'm like, have I, like, I think about it, I'm like, have I? And then there was one time I told my whole story and I was like, man, that, right? Like you're like, oh, wow, okay, there is a lot there, but I learned from every single one of those. It wasn't that I am going to dwell in that spot, nor am I going to just, well, when you take it with you, I call it the shoulda, woulda, coulda, hoodoo, voodoo, we do's. That's what I call them. Because I could have done this, I should have done that. But then I also look at things and move forward now, and I'm like, yeah, I could have, or should have, but I didn't. But this is what I'm learning from it. And I can move forward and not have to dwell on that part, because it's part of my experience. It's part of who I am now. And that's what I love. Like, honestly, I love the show because I can have people like you on here that are able to share that part of their life. And not everybody has been through that experience. And so I get that. And when they hear others and what experience they have been through, they're like blown away by what was happened or what has happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, we all handle things a little differently. And so whatever you've been through might have wowed me. And that's what people don't understand about life. Like, we're all, and to kind of add to what you said, the shoulda, coulda, woulda, if you had done something different, the experience would have been different. You wouldn't have learned the lesson. I don't believe in losing. I believe in you either win or you learn, right? The only time that you really lose is when you refuse to accept the lesson. Even then, you don't lose. The universe just sends that lesson back in a different form, and you just keep repeating that same lesson until you get it. And then you can kind of raise your consciousness, and then when that situation, you can manage it much better and you get through it. You're like, oh wow, okay, cool, and you're on to the next phase of your life. But we're all in this thing together, and we can all help each other. We can all learn from each other. You're not alone if you're thinking that. A lot of times you feel alone, and that was one of my biggest things, because I failed to mention that I was going to commit suicide shortly after I got out of the military, and you feel alone. You feel like this is just me going through all of this. Everyone else has a better life. Everyone has it figured out. Everyone is good to go, and that's the mind um, casting a lot of nonsense your way because no one's got it figured out. No one. I don't care how much money they have, what their platform is, how long they've been an expert. They don't have it all figured out. Life makes sure that we don't have it figured out. Okay. And it's okay. It's okay to understand that you're not alone. You know, in this very second, in this very moment, someone is becoming rich, someone's losing it all. Someone's dying, someone's being born. Someone is, mad, someone's happy. All at this very second, all of this is happening, right? And we're a part of this cosmic greatness that's unfolding. But if you zoomed all the way out, you would see perfection, right? But when you zoom too far in, all you can see is the problem. All you can see is this isolation. And that's when we start making rash decisions and start feeling like we're alone in this thing. But there's a million other people probably facing similar stuff right now. So,
Yeah, definitely. And I would love to, we're going to maybe shift just a little bit, but we have to go to a quick sponsored break. So we'll be right back after this, and then maybe we'll shift a little. We'll see.
Hi there, I'm Dan Hafner. I'm the host of the show Tech Bites with Dan Hafner. Join me live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on the Achieve TV network for the latest technology and business news and advice. Join me right here on E360 TV.
And like that, we're back.
oh,
If you are just joining us, my guest Chad and I were talking about his story, what he's been through with his mother was addicted to drugs, sexual and physical abuse, being in the military, having kids that had disabilities, himself included, and also several motorcycle accidents, also not eye-opening, that's not the right word, but experiences with the last motorcycle accident that really was a lesson that changed his whole entire life. And with your military background, that was kind of something that I wanted to back up just a little bit to, because you talked about how this really became your identity because you felt like you were identity less. That's not maybe a word, but going with it.
yeah.
So I'm curious because I also last week I had a guest who she helps with combat veterans. We also had a veteran on the show together with her, and this was something that we also talked about was after you leave the military or you're discharged, because he was also hurt and discharged, but you lose that identity that you were. And this is a piece that I feel like we don't talk about enough, is the transition from military life back into civilian life. And you said it right before we went to break, is that oftentimes you feel just so completely alone, but wanting to let people know that you're not alone. So I'm just curious if there's anything you wanted to fill in as related to that.
Yeah. The transition is hard. I won't sugarcoat that. The military, they make you dependent in a way, on that lifestyle. It becomes all that you are, consumes your life. Your entire family becomes a part of that as well if you have a family. So it's like everyone, that's what you know, that's what you do. And so you come out and all of those things that you were so used to having, right? It's gone. And you go to the VA, you're just a number, right? Whereas if you're active duty, I don't know what it's like to be a reserve or National Guard, but active duty, we're first come, right, at the hospital and trying to get help. Like it's a, you get kind of pushed to the front of the line on many things. You always have someone that can pull some strings or do something for you to get whatever it is that you need. And then you don't, right? You're just cut off. Everything that you're used to, you don't really have anymore. Now you're 899 on the list and you're just like, hold on, I need this done. And so it's a big transition. That camaraderie is kind of gone. That team aspect that you're so used to having deteriorates really quickly because, you left. A lot of those guys didn't. They're still doing whatever they have to do. And so there's a lot of factors in that. But, and, some of it you can help or affect by being prepared for the transition as much as you can. I mean, some things you're just not going to be ready for, and they're just going to be an adjustment that you have to make, right? Jobs and all of that stuff is going to be a big adjustment, right? Civilians don't operate like you operate or how you're used to operating, but now you have to understand you are now a civilian. Whether you want to put vet in front of your name or not, you're operating in the civilian world, and that's what you have to be. But I think the biggest thing that I wish I had known this pretty much my whole life, but that none of this stuff is my identity, right? You think I'm a soldier, I'm this, I'm a sniper, I'm an instructor, I'm, whatever, you fill in the blank. But those things are transient, right? They come and they go. And, people with, if you play sports, it's common in the sports world. If you play sports for a very long time, especially in the pro, they, get hurt or whatever, and they lose their mind. They don't know what is up and down because their whole life revolved around that sport, their identity, right? But I began to dive within. And as soon as I dove within, I found my way out, right? So the way out is actually going within yourself and truly finding out who you are, right? Beyond the titles and the concepts that we have created as humans, to get through. Again, I preach this a lot. Concepts don't equate to truth. All right. Somebody created that concept so they could get, through their path in life. They pass it down and we hold it as truth, and we try to identify with these concepts. And until you strip the concepts away, you won't find who you really are. If you want to identify with, the military, with, whatever job you have, you're going to be lost at the end because eventually it ends, right? If you're going to identify with anything that has a transition to it, you find yourself not knowing which way is north, and that's not a good place to be. But if you can find what's real within, and it's not dependent on this natural world and everything that's going, it's constant, it's within, it's sturdy. You find your footing there, and you're never lost.
Yeah. I love that you said that and brought that up too. I've had several other guests. So a lot of my nonprofit, I partner with people that are more on the holistic space. We still partner with professionals, but I love all the different modalities and the concepts of holistic practices, I guess is the best word. That's not the best word, but it is really cool to hear you say, like, now that wasn't your identity, right? Like, you wish you would have learned that earlier, and now really doing a lot more self-reflection and probably a lot of like personal development and really truly like understanding who you are as a human in this space. I had another guest that we talked about the whole just, I mean, more like energy, and she calls in your meat suit, right? Like, this is our meat suit that we
Yeah.
have now. And understanding those concepts, because I think that when you start to look at it from a different perspective, it almost becomes easier in a way. Like, life becomes easier when you're not so attached, like you were saying, to that identity. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, attachments, man, it's dangerous. And again, I had to learn all of this a really hard way. When I had my out of body experience, there was no body, right? It was just like awareness of everything, right? There was no words being spoken. There was no, but it was like a complete understanding of everything. I don't even know how to explain it, right? Like that's how I know it was real, because words can't do it justice. And when you come back into your body, you realize that, like, the meat suit, I've never heard that, but that's honestly what it is. There is something that is forever operating within us, right? And it's the same source that created everything. Really, there is, and when we talk about feeling separate, that alone, that duality that we have alone, is because we're identifying with this flesh and this the concepts of this world. But when you dive within, you find that the energy within the source that of all that, then you realize that same source produced everything. What One of the best analogies I heard was that the wave is the ocean. It's not separate. We think that we're waves and that we're somehow different, right? But when that wave comes and crashes back in, it's still water, and it still comes back within the ocean. We are the ocean. And you can kind of understand that, and it goes above a lot of people's head, and that's okay, because it would have went through over my head 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I would have been like, what are you talking about, dude? But at the end of the day, we are more than what we see in the mirror, and more than what this society and world is telling us. It's like the lost following the lost, right? We're just, no one knows where they're going until you find someone that has looked within and found that thing that's real, that thing that's constant, that doesn't change. Because your name, if you change it, are you still that? Right? I'm You look at a picture when I was 5 years old and a picture now, I look completely different. Am I the same person? Which one is me? The 40-some-year-old one or the 5-year-old, right? So at the end of the day, there's all of this changing. And to me, the definition of real has to be unchanging. It has to be constant. No matter what it's faced with, it stays the same. And that is within each and every one of us.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, as we go throughout this thing that we call life, we have these certain experiences, and we have the opportunity, or the option, I guess you could say, to experience it one way or another. And that was something that I didn't understand for the longest time. And really starting to step into that even more now, because, like we were just saying, like, it becomes easier when you don't attach to certain things, but also when you look at it from a different perspective. And that's why I call them the shoulda, coulda, woulda, voodoo, we do's, because there's so many people telling you, like, what you should be doing or what you could be doing, but, like, we also have to give the opportunity for people to experience things however they need to at that moment, right? It doesn't, I mean, you said each moment, there is so many things happening in this one single moment, and we can only really control or worry about ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. I think that that's something that we do miss. We have this control thing as humans as well, right? And so, to that point, you do have to allow people to go their course, right? And I do believe that there's a divine timing involved in everyone's life. And again, I think that each experience, each moment, each hurdle, it just raises our consciousness. It helps us evolve, if that's the right word, to who we really are, and an understanding of that. Because who we really are is already knows who it is. It's our mind that doesn't, right? Our mind is still kind of figuring this thing out. So the awakening, or whatever we want to call it, is really for the mind, to kind of become aware of the truth of who we are. But that looks different for every single person. Like me, I'm hard headed. I had to become an alcoholic and ride motorcycles and join the military, and you know, be in a drug house full of drug addicts and gangbangers and all of this other stuff, right? I had to experience those things because, and this is something I also preach a lot, is to find out who you are, all you got to do is find out what you're not. And so you find out what you're not by experiencing these things, by going out and doing it. I suck at basketball. I'm not a good basketball player. It's not for me, right? Now I know. I wouldn't have known unless I have that experience. So it's not that it's a bad thing, right? You're just finding out what you're not, and that's cool. And then once it's all kind of clicks in your mind, you're like, oh, this is what I am. Then now everything else kind of clicks into place from that point. So, don't get frustrated. Enjoy the journey, is because that's what it is. It's a journey, and you don't really have a choice. We're all on this rock floating around, right? And so you're here, and you're here for a reason. Enjoy it, experience it, find out what you're not, so that you can find out who you are.
Yeah, I love that. And I would totally just leave it there. But I have another question for you. So, and as we were talking before we went live, I know that you said you and your wife have a podcast because you are now helping people through relationships and marriages. So, do you want to tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so My Bulletproof Marriages is the name of our business or our coaching, and we offer individual one-on-one coaching with couples. We also have a couple online like digital courses that we sell on our website, Facebook group, and we have a podcast. And the main thing for us is we know what it's like to be married and go through life. What people don't realize when they get married is life itself affects your marriage. It's not one thing, it's everything. It's the way your kids are, money, your job, all of it is going to influence the relationship. And we've been together for 26 years, married for 19, and all of the things that I've said tonight, besides growing up in a crack house, she's pretty much experienced with me, right? And she was on the tail end of that too. I had to go to her high school because my original high school wouldn't allow me. Once I ran away and came back, they wouldn't allow me to come back to that school. So they sent me out of my district to her school, and that's how we kind of met. And we've been together ever since, and doing life together. But she's had to see me find me. She's had to, we've fought, we've come from almost getting divorced, like financial issues. I mean, we were at a place in our life where we were at the grocery store with a calculator with $25 in change to feed 4 kids. And we were like, I don't know how we're gonna do this, but we figured it out. And when you look around and you see this world, and a lot of people are hurting, to hurt people, just hurt people. So and you have these relationships that could work out, they could become stronger and more resilient, but we just quit. And so we want to give as much knowledge and experience, and that's what differentiates us from everybody else. A lot of people that we run into in the coaching space, they take a course, our course was life. And when we look back, we came up with a few critical steps that we took to create what we have today. And so that's what we give people. We enjoy it. We enjoy seeing people thrive in their marriage and individually, because we do a lot of individual stuff as well. Like to your point earlier, you were saying how people have to experience life the way they experience it. Well, it's no different in a marriage. You can't make your partner be one way or the other. You can't make them see what you want them to see, right? So there's a lot of internal work that has to take place on an individual level, and the culmination is a vibrant marriage that is resilient and successful. So that's our deal, and we love it. And if someone on here needs some help, just look me up. We would love to be of service.
Yeah, I think that's, such a great point too, is that hurt people. And you both have gone through all of this, right? It wasn't I mean, of course, you had those moments that you almost went towards divorce, and then you got, went through what you were going through, and it's hard. I mean, it's truly hard being with anybody in a relationship, whether it is a family member, whether it is a significant other, in a marriage, because we are the only ones that we can worry about in a way, right? We have to like look out for ourselves. And I think that what you said was really important, is that we have to do the work on ourselves, to understand ourselves and who we are as a person, versus trying to put that on to, especially in a marriage, right? Because it can be challenging, and it's a journey, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, God, it's a journey. It is a journey. It is a journey, but it's rewarding. And one thing I'll say to add to that, for your listeners, is that uh, your partner becomes a mirror, right? And this is something that we didn't understand in the beginning. Okay, and it goes back to why we focus on fixing inside internally first, right? Before you try to fix your partner, because a lot of times we're projecting our own issues, right? And you come at your partner like it's their fault, but really they're just mirroring exactly who you are, and all these undealt situations and moments in your life, all of these things that we kind of stuff in the background and we think won't pop back up. It does in a marriage. All of these things pop up and they get projected out onto your partner. You think it's their fault. Okay. You think it's them, but really they're just showing you.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
that
that's a rough.
sometimes that's hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a rough one.
You're like, wait, is that really? But oh yeah, okay. It
Yeah.
is.
I mean, there's a lot of introspection that I mean, any of this, any change requires a lot of introspection, a lot of time, and a lot of honesty with yourself. I kind of liken it to being lost in the woods and having a map. But if you don't know where you are, that map really doesn't help too much, right? You got to know where your starting point to use the map and get to a better place. And a lot of people don't want to look within to find where they are, find the truth of their location, because once you find it, then you can work your way out. You can get to a better place. But if you're just walking around lost, like, I don't want to look at me, then you're going to stay exactly the way things are.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe I'll have to bring you and your wife back on,
Yeah.
because I do Mondays. We have kind of our expert people that come on, and maybe that could be a thing. We talk about what you do on that side. But I really appreciate you sharing your story and your journey, and how all the things that you have been through, and now you're in this amazing place that you're really able to share it with others, which is so important. Because if we didn't have people like you, then I feel like a lot of people would be lost, and they wouldn't really feel like they are not alone. So I appreciate you sharing. And if people want to find you, what is the best place that they can find you?
So just Chad Osinga on Facebook. I'm still old, so like I don't really get into the TikTok. We have one, so you can look up My Bulletproof Marriages on TikTok. I don't personally have it, or yeah, TikTok and Instagram. I don't personally have a Instagram. I'm just old, and it's cool with me to stay with Facebook. My Bulletproof Marriages on YouTube. And then mybulletproofmarriages.com is our website. And you can get all of our social, our blog posts, podcast, set up a call with us. We do free 30-minute calls with anyone. So you can set all that up by just going to this link that she just popped up there.
Yeah, right
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
right
Awesome. Well, I so appreciate you again just coming on and sharing your journey through all your experiences. And thank you so much again. I really, really appreciate it.
No, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, y'all, that was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter. Again, on Wednesdays, I have guests who are here to share their warrior story, whatever they have been through in life, and really in that place of hope. We all have a story. We've all had experiences. Some people have had more than others, and they really are able to go through whatever it is and get to this place of hope. So that's the whole goal of Wednesdays. On Mondays, I have guests who are either professionals in the mental health space, advocates, or those that have an experience within the mental health world. I know they kind of totally intertwine in each other, but I am just so blessed to have incredible guests like Chad share his story. And a lot of people would feel like they might break at any one of those points, especially through his journey. And there were parts that he was actually physically broken, maybe mentally broken, but and it took certain experiences to get to that place that you have to do that inner reflection. You have to figure out who you are. What does this mean? What is the lesson that I need to learn here? And I don't know about you, but I have had many, many, many of those moments throughout my life. And I am just so honored to be able to share other people's stories on this show. So, whatever you do, please come back and join me on Monday for another episode. And if you want to be a guest on this show, just reach out to me. Here, I'll drop I don't do this every single time, but there we go. Okay. So support at bccevolution.org. If you want to be a guest, whether it's on the Monday show or this Wednesday show to share your story, drop me a email and or just go to the website. It's over here, the website, and you can check out the show. It's under resources because I consider this to be one of my resources to be able to give you people resources that whether they are sharing on Mondays or sharing on Wednesdays. And so you can find all that information at BCC Evolution. And just as a reminder, it is a 501c3 nonprofit, mental health and suicide awareness nonprofit. So make sure you go check it out and you can become a warrior for mental health with only $19 or more per month. And that goes back to all of our programs, including this show. So thank you so much for watching and join me back next week. Bye, y'all.